Today we're tackling the devastating and incredibly complex crisis unfolding in Sudan. This is a conflict that the United Nations isn't just concerned about, they've called it the world's largest humanitarian disaster.
And to really get a sense of just how bad things are, just listen to this. This isn't a line from some horror movie. It's what researchers at Yale saw when they looked at satellite photos. It's a brutal, urgent reality check for everything we're about to cover.
And look, that's not some kind of exaggeration. It's the UN's official designation. What that means is more people are on the run, and more people are in desperate need of help here than anywhere else on the entire planet.
So, you might be wondering, how do we even know what's happening on the ground when it's so dangerous and hard to get to? Well, a lot of the most damning evidence is actually coming from above. So, let's start there, by looking at this crisis from space.
Okay, so let's break down that quote we started with. It comes from the city of El Fasher, and what the satellite images showed, well, it wasn't just random violence. It was mounds of bodies. Chilling, systematic evidence that what's happening is ethnic cleansing, aimed directly at indigenous, non-Arab tribes.
So, how on earth did it get this bad? This wasn't supposed to happen. There was this incredible moment of hope for democracy not that long ago, but that hope was completely hijacked. To get to the root of it, we have to talk about the general's power grab that lit the fuse for this whole war.
At its heart, this is a war born from the ambitions of these two men. On one side, you've got General al-Burhan. He's the head of the official state military, the Sudanese Armed Forces. And on the other side, there's General Dagalo, but everybody knows him as Hemedti. He leads an incredibly powerful paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF.
Yeah, and this timeline, it really just lays out the whole tragedy, doesn't it? I mean, think about it. 2019, so much excitement when the dictator al-Bashir was finally kicked out. They even formed a council to guide the country toward democracy. But just 2 years later, the two generals we just saw, they teamed up, staged a coup, and grabbed all the power for themselves. And by April 2023, their partnership fell apart, and their personal fight for the top spot dragged the entire country down into a horrific civil war.
Now, a war of this size, it needs fuel. It needs a constant stream of cash to keep going, and that brings us to a huge economic driver of the violence: Sudan's incredible natural wealth. Specifically, we're going to talk about how gold is literally fueling this war.
Just take a second to look at this number. 90%. An absolutely staggering 90% of all the gold that comes out of Sudan's ground gets smuggled out of the country. This basically guts the national economy, and instead, it becomes a direct off-the-books payday for the very militias who are tearing the country apart. It's a really simple but just brutal cycle that keeps this war machine running. Step 1. Both sides fight tooth and nail to control the gold mines. Step 2. They smuggle that gold out. The money from that is then used for Step 3, buying more weapons. And of course, those new weapons allow them to keep fighting. It's a vicious, self-funding loop of destruction. So while the generals and their armies are fighting over gold and power, it's the ordinary people of Sudan who are paying the ultimate price. Now we need to turn to the absolutely devastating human costs of this conflict.
These numbers, they're hard to even wrap your head around. Even by conservative estimates, we're talking about more than 150,000 people killed as a direct result of this fighting.
And the tragedy goes so much further than the death toll. More than 10 million people. Think about that. More than 10 million people have been forced to flee their homes. That makes this the largest internal displacement crisis in the entire world, right now.
And it gets even worse. Because beyond the bullets and the bombs, starvation itself has become a weapon in this war. By late 2023, just in two regions, Darfur and Kordofan, an estimated 375,000 people were facing actual starvation.
And here's what is so chilling about all of this. This isn't just some new, random conflict. The violence that's happening right now has revived the absolute horrors of the Darfur genocide from 2003, a crime against humanity the world already vowed to never forget.
Now, to really understand that dark connection, you have to know this name, the Janjaweed. The term literally translates to a devil on a horseback. It was the name given to the Arab militia that carried out the mass killings in Darfur back in the early 2000s.
And this right here, this might be the single most important thing to understand in this entire explainer. The Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, led by General Hemedti, is the rebranded Janjaweed. Let that sink in. The very same group responsible for the genocide 2 decades ago is one of the main players in today's war, and they are once again targeting the very same non-Arab communities.
So with a crisis this massive, with the clear, terrifying echoes of a past genocide, you have to ask the question, right? Where is the rest of the world in all this? And that brings us to why this conflict is so tragically known as the world's forgotten war. You see, the hard truth is that the world isn't just ignoring this war. International players are being accused of actively pouring fuel on the fire. The RSF is allegedly getting backing from the UAE and Russia's Wagner Group. Meanwhile, the army is reportedly getting support from Iran, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. It's become a tangled and deadly proxy war.
So you've got weapons and funding flowing into the fighters. But what about life-saving aid for the people caught in the middle? Well, that's a completely different story. This chart says it all. The aid needed was over $4 billion. The aid that actually showed up? Less than a third of that. The global response has been a catastrophic failure.
So, after everything we've just seen, the scale of the killing, the starvation, the displacement, the echoes of genocide, it all comes back to this one really disturbing question. How can a crisis of this magnitude possibly be called the forgotten war?
I want to end with this last quote, because it really sums it all up. The stakes could not be any higher. This isn't just a story about a faraway conflict. It's a test of our shared humanity. And the final takeaway is this: it can still be stopped, but that depends entirely on the world finally deciding to pay attention.